grab a few little people first, I think. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and hello, really. I have no idea how to start this. I've made like 550 odd videos, and I still feel a little awkward at the beginning of these videos. I suppose that's why us folks on this site all have intros, isn't it? And so that we can get past the first 5 seconds of awkwardness and let ourselves relax before we carry on with the rest of the video. Much the same as why British people have this horrible tendency of, whenever we bump into anyone, we say, "Hello, how are you?" And then they reply, "Not too bad, thanks, how are you?" And then they also say, "Not too bad, thanks." And then that sort of gets you through the first awkward little bit of the conversation. It doesn't matter whether your dog has just died or you've just won the lottery, you always say, "Not too bad, thanks." Which is useful little tip if you are a spy and you're trying to invade the country and you want to blend in. Anyway, this video is me rambling for possibly a long time, possibly not very long at all, I don't know. This video sort of blossomed out of one I made last year, same time last year, where I wanted to take stock of sort of where the channel was a little bit, and also have a little chat about where I wanted the channel to go in the future as well. And I decided a month or two ago that I wanted to sort of carry that on, make it almost a little tradition, as it were. A sort of once a year, probably around this time, I would take stock of where the channel has gone in the past year and where I would like to go in the future. So just sort of once a year, we can just sit down, have a little chat, and think about what's going on in my wacky little corner of the internet. So I thought I'd start by talking about some of the things that have happened, or more importantly, in most of the cases, some of the things that haven't happened in the past year. And where I want to start with that is outtakes. The outtakes videos, and why they have been so horribly absent. Because I was flicking through the sort of the schedule, if you like, the sort of history, if you like, of the channel, of all the videos that have come out over the past year, and I noticed that it was pretty much just after I made the previous video like this, when the part 5 of outtakes came out, and it's been almost an entire year since another one came out, and I'm really sorry about that. I'm not entirely sure why, because I'm not convinced that they're people's favourite kind of content, but they're really fun, and they're a really nice change of pace compared to everything else that we do. So it's yeah, I'm always trying to get them going again, but they don't, because I never seem to have enough time to do them, because they are a horribly time-intensive project. Just to give you an idea of the sorts of time commitments that go into a normal video. Say you record a video and it's 30 minutes, for example. Editing it, the normal video, like a standalone or something, normally takes only about 10% longer than the video itself. So if a video is 30 minutes, it'll probably take about 33 minutes in order to edit it. If it's an hour, it'll take an hour and 6 minutes, etc. I'm sure you can figure out percentages without me patronising you. That's a normal video. Some things like shotguns, or games where something's gone wrong a little bit, and like I have to do some editing to tidy little bits up, or I need to like put in black screens to cover up something where I accidentally bring up the Steam overlay and reveal someone's username, which isn't supposed to be public information, or I do something else stupid, or the game's really quiet and I want to do some music, or I have to do like manual audio balancing and editing, or I have to like bring up the game's volume when I'm not talking so that you can hear the dialogue in the game, but then bring it down when I'm talking so that I'm not screaming into your lug holes. Things like that. That tends to I mean, they're longer, they're not massively longer. It tends to be then about 150% of the time. So an hour's video would take an hour and a half to do, like that. Outtakes, however, take about, well, it's a very piecemeal style of production, because the way the outtakes work, to give you a sort of behind-the-scenes idea of how they function, is I record stuff, and then when I finish the recording, I then know whether that was a successful recording or whether it was a failed recording. And from that, I then decide where I put the file. Does it go into the to be edited file, or does it go into the outtakes to be edited file? And then eventually, whenever I get time, and in the last year I have had no time at all, I edit that footage, where I just watch through the footage and then just cut out any little snippets which I think could be turned into a joke. And that means just processing all of that footage, which takes, obviously, as long as the footage is. And currently, I've got about 5 hours. 5 hours worth of outtake footage. Excuse me. About 5 hours worth of outtake footage, which is still waiting to be processed. But that's only the first step, because that only gets you the raw clips. Then it's a matter of actually writing the jokes that go around the clips, then writing the, what I call the black screens, because it's a black screen with white text on it, because I'm very imaginative. Writing those screens, and then putting the screens with the videos, and then coming up with the sort of the sequence, as it were, trying to balance short, snappy jokes with slightly longer things, and trying to have different types of jokes to keep sort of the variety up, and to keep things all sort of pleasant and cheery in that matter, and trying to figure out a schedule, moving things around, adding things in and taking things out, is also quite a lengthy process. And then it's a matter of physically putting it all together, which isn't as easy as just, you know, put that, then that, then that. It's not just like putting books on a bookshelf. You have to do all of the audio balancing, because of course every recording is slightly different in its audio level, which is fine between two entirely separate videos because you don't notice it. But then when you've got clips from various different audio, various different bits of audio being all put together in one video, it then becomes much more noticeable. So you have to go through and very carefully try to balance all of the audio levels of each one, which is a pain in the neck trying to do that, and again is very time consuming. What I'm basically trying to say is that outtakes for 5 minutes footage can take days, right? Can literally take days of work in order to produce one. And I'm not saying that to try and like complain about it, or to sort of say like, oh, look at outtakes, they're so hard, or anything like that. I'm not trying to do any of that rubbish. I'm just trying to give you a little insight into how much time they take up, because over the past year I have had so very little time at all, because my university degree took up huge volumes of time, right? And then back, when was it? I feel like it was the middle of May, round about that time, when I finally finished my degree, or at least like finished like teaching, learning rather, a bit of the degree. It was like, hooray, I can get back to making an outtakes video. And then I got really busy at work because I'd let some stuff at work slide, which I shouldn't have, while I was trying to like finish off my dissertation and so forth. And then, just when I'd caught up on all the work wanted me to do this training course thing, which is eating up even more of my time. But my hope, I've done a tiny bit of processing. Like I used to have like an extra hour and a half of footage for outtakes, which I've processed like a little tiny bit of footage. I want to process all of it, completely clear the backlog of footage that needs to be cleared. And then I can, hopefully, that'll give me enough ammunition, if you like, for two outtakes videos, which would be nice. That's the hope, but there's no guarantee that that will actually happen. I mean, you know, a second outtakes video will appear eventually, unless I get some sort of horrific stroke of odd fortune where I don't have any bad recordings for ages, which happens sometimes, which is another variable when it comes to the outtakes videos, because sometimes you just don't get any bad recordings, which on the one hand is great, because that means you're not wasting hours of time recording stuff which then cannot turn into videos, but then on the other hand, you aren't making footage for outtakes, which I sort of want. So I almost want there to be bad recordings sometimes. I mean, that was the whole point of me inventing the outtakes format in the first place, was so that I could do something with that footage, because I got so tired of making recordings and then just binning them and throwing hours of footage into the bin for absolutely no purpose. So that's sort of the reason why they came into being, and I'm really glad that that happened, because I always like to find a way of turning something bad into something good, which is basically where the midweek slot came from as well, actually, when I'd record a video and it would be like 90 seconds long. I think this is a good game, I'd like to show this off, but I can't, because it doesn't fit into the format of like a minimum of like a 28-minute video. That just wouldn't work. What I originally tried doing was splicing in between parts of a shotgun, which was an interesting idea, but didn't really work, like even at all, because that was back when shotgun episodes weren't themed. They were basically just, here are two things, let's just stick them together. Why? Because that's what we're doing. Not because it's what's sensible, which was a dreadful way of running it. But yeah, hopefully soon work will calm down, and then in the brief summer period between the end of my undergraduate and the beginning of my master's degree, hopefully I'll find time to finish off a outtakes video, and that can come back, because I don't want outtakes to look like it's finished, because it's not. It was never planned to just be like a short series. It's a sort of ongoing thing. I don't want it to ever stop. So, that's that spoken about. I suppose the other thing to talk about, being most relevant to what I talked about last time, is the shotguns, and talking about how they have progressed since, because I spent the vast majority of the previous video talking about shotguns and how I wanted them to develop. And I think that the concept has been fine-tuned, right? The concept of finding two games which are thematically similar and hopefully also visually similar, pacingly similar, and length similar, and then putting them together. And we've had some really, really well-partnered shotguns, like the shotgun of Office Horror, for example. That's one I always think back to when I think of getting the matching in a shotgun correct. I often think back to the shotgun of Office Horror, because I think that is a really nice example of that. So I think that the concept, in terms of what I want the shotguns to be, I've figured that out, and that is good. What I now need to do is find the balance. Because on the one hand, and I think I talked about this before, on the one hand, I want things which are very strongly thematically linked, so very, very similar games. The problem is that the longer that you wait between a recording, finding the first recording, and then waiting for its partner, the more disconnected those videos get, merely because of recording style and because of recording location. I know it's a tiny, tiny element, but it still bugs me. I would really rather if all the shotgun halves could be in the same place. So like either both of them are here or both of them are in the city. It would just be nice if they could both be in the same place, so that the background and like some of the lighting elements don't change in the middle of the video, which is a really small element and is much less important than the theming of the actual games themselves. But it's another variable that I would like to keep constant throughout the video if that was possible, and obviously sometimes it's not. But the longer the time period between two recordings, the more the recording style changes, because my humour changes from time to time. And with separate videos, again, that's fine, because it's not noticeable, because it's just two separate games, two separate videos. But then when you've got the two games in the same video, it can end up being very noticeable, which I don't like. Not that I think there's anything wrong with having different styles of recording. I would just rather it not be blatantly obvious that, like, in September it looks one way and then in June it looks a different way. And the other thing is that you get one game and you record it and you put it in the file and then it sits there, possibly for months. I've got a recording of a game from last August, and I'm recording this at the beginning of June. It's been sat there for nearly a year. And at this point I'm thinking, are we ever going to find anything which is actually similar enough to this game that we can put it into a shotgun? But it's 20 minutes long, which is like the perfect length for a shotgun half. But yes, the reason I talk about that, the reason that I want things to be thematically similar, but on the other hand, I have to sometimes, or I feel perhaps that I have to sometimes sacrifice the thematic similarity for, like, more practical concerns of, like, actually using the footage and it just not sitting there forever, which is a tricky balance to find, because, and this links into something else I want with the shotguns. I want the shotguns to be a regular feature on the channel. The way that they're currently working is there's one every other week, and I like that. I think that is the right sort of regularity for shotguns. But the problem is, and this always happens when you set a quota on anything, that means that you end up sacrificing the quality for the sake of getting similar things. For the sake of, rather, you sacrifice the quality for the sake of getting it out on time. It's like cramming for an exam the night before. The quality is going to go down because you're trying to hit a deadline, not because you're trying to do it well. But again, I feel like if I don't give myself a sort of schedule for a shotgun, for like when there should be another shotgun, then I'm going to end up in a situation where shotguns turn into outtakes, and because I can't find games that are similar enough, shotguns would disappear off the channel, which is not what I want. Partly because I love the shotgun just for what it is, partly because I think it's a nice little unique and interesting thing, which probably exists elsewhere on the website, but I have yet to see anywhere else on the website. Lots of people combine multiple games into a single video. That particularly sprang up around when, I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was something to do with either the advertisers or the monetization of videos, where instead of it being the views that counted, it was the viewed duration that counted. So short videos weren't doing well. This was before my time, but short videos weren't doing well because they were short. So people would come and they'd watch like a 5-minute video, and they'd watch all of it, but they'd only watch for 5 minutes. And then YouTube didn't like that, because it wasn't, like holding the audience's attention for a very long time, even though it was holding it for 100% of the video. But anyway, so what then people started doing was everyone wanted to make longer videos, which would have longer view durations, in order to like keep that view duration higher, to serve whatever purpose that served, monetary interests. And I was quite happy with that, because I've always preferred longer form videos. Always have. And I tended to gravitate towards the channels which made longer form videos. So yeah, lots of people do combine multiple games into a single video for the sake of making a physically longer video. But it's relatively rare for me to see people doing it in a sort of a themed way or a purposeful way, like combining the games together in a single video because it makes sense. And I talked about this last year. I think it's kind of pointless combining multiple games into a single video just for the sake of it, because it's easier for the audience to find what they want to watch if they're separate videos. If they're just multiple things combined into the same video, I think that makes it a bit harder on the audience. It's fine for the people that just watch whatever it is that you produce, and they just like watching whatever it is you produce. But if they specifically want to see something, then they probably don't want to have it like combined with other stuff that they're less interested in. But I think by keeping it thematically similar, it sort of makes sense, because if they're there for one silly office-based indie game, they're probably interested in also seeing another silly office-based indie game, if that makes sense. It would be like, I don't know, if meals always came in pairs, you wouldn't give like a vegan sausage roll and pair that with a tenderloin steak, right? It just wouldn't make any sense. But you might put a vegan sausage roll with a salad, because if somebody wants a vegan sausage roll, they maybe want a salad, but they probably don't want a tenderloin steak. So it's sort of combining things that belong together, if that makes any sense at all, and it probably doesn't. But anyway, I'm rambling and I'm losing my train of thought, and I apologise for that. But I like the shotguns. I really do. I want them to be a permanent part of the channel, and I don't want them to just disappear like Outtakes did, which is why I want them to be regular, but I'm afraid that if I do keep them regular, that the pickle that we'll end up in is that the quality will go down, so that the quantity can go up, which I have noticed sometime. There are some shotguns which I have put out which have just been thoroughly unacceptable in terms of the pairing. Let me quickly get up the shotgun playlist so I can just have a look and see if there's an example of that. Yes, here is a good example. When did this come out? Can I see the date on this? I can if I click on the right one instead of clicking on the Spanish one. The 10th of April. Yes, on the 10th of April we had a shotgun come out, which was Dark Hotel and The Apartment. Those were the two games in it, right? And this links back to what I was saying before about sitting on games forever. Dark Hotel I recorded back in September of last year, I think. Yes, I did, because it was one of the first recordings I made when I went up to the city for the beginning of my final year of my degree, and I've been sitting on it for ages and ages and ages, and I was looking for something to partner it with, and I couldn't find anything to partner it with. So eventually, when The Apartment came along, which was... I didn't do that, that's going to destroy the building. Well, not destroy it, but damage it. When The Apartment came along, I put them together in a shotgun, even though they really didn't belong together, because one was about a hotel and one was about an apartment. And, I mean, they were both sort of about demonic horror, but, I mean, the recording style is dreadfully different. And the age of the recordings is so different, and the sort of environments are quite different, and the visual style is also a little bit different. There were just too many things which were slightly different. Another example of that is the what I called the shotgun of slasher horror. When did that come out? 25th of March. That came out on the 25th of March. That was a combination of a game called Deadly Night and a game called Halloween. And they were both sort of slasher stuff, which was good. The problem is that one was third person and one was first person. One of them was like realistic graphics, and the other one was like VHS. One of them was like 25 minutes, and one of them was like 12 minutes. And I just could have put them together because I thought, ooh, slashers, that sort of works in terms of what we're physically combining. And in terms of what we were physically combining, it did work. What didn't work was the fact that all of the rest of the variables weren't acceptable. But because I was trying to meet a quota in terms of fitting the correct number of shotguns onto the channel, they kind of got forced out when perhaps they shouldn't have been. But I would like to fix that, but I'm not entirely sure how to do that without just having better luck in terms of finding more partnered games. And I am trying to do that where and when I can. When I find something that looks like it would be a good half for a shotgun, I try to look around on itch.io and Steam for other things that seem similar. So if it's about, I don't know, a game about trying to park your car, I look for another game about trying to park your car. I try to find things which are similar, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it's brilliant, and then we get a really nice, shotgun. And sometimes you just find them randomly, and you say, hey, this works with that other thing that we recorded a while ago, let's stick them together because it sort of works. But, yeah. I care a lot about the shotguns, and I want them to be good. and I want them to be worthy of your time, and I also want to wonder where the sound has gone. These speakers are really, really gammy. Never mind about the gammy speakers, let's get on with it. Anyway, I think that's enough about shotguns. I feel like I ramble on about shotguns all the time, even though they're like, what, if there's one every 2 weeks, that's 1 out of 8 videos. That's 1 in 8 videos is a shotgun, so really, perhaps I shouldn't pay quite as much attention to them as I do, but they are sort of my, one of my favourite things on the channel, so I want them to be good. But anyway, speaking about something I can actually do in terms of shotguns, which I want to do, is I want to start doing nicer thumbnails for them. And you may know this or you may not know this, I do not do a lot of effort when it comes to thumbnails, right? And there's a reason for this, and I will get to why in a minute. I don't put a lot of effort into thumbnails, barely any at all. And what I want to do with the shotguns is start having the shotguns mirror the actual format. What I want to do is to have the thumbnail be sort of half and half. So like the left half, that is the left for you, isn't it? Yes. The left half is the first game, and then the right half is the second game. Because then there's multiple reasons for that. One, I think the thumbnail should reflect the video, and by doing this sort of spliced half and half thumbnail, it sort of reflects spliced half and half video. And also because it makes it more sort of instantly recognisable when you see it. As like being recommended, or it's in like a feed or something. When you see the thumbnail, you immediately recognise what it is without having to read the title, which I think helps in terms of people knowing what it is more quickly, because I appreciate that sometimes the names of the games are quite long, and that means the word shotgun isn't immediately obvious. So that's something I would like to do. I'd like to sort of retroactively apply that as well, go back to old shotguns and find and give them new thumbnails. The problem is that's going to require rewatching all the shotguns, and there's a lot of them. I mean, how many are in this playlist? This isn't even all of them. Currently, there's 60 in that playlist. There's probably going to be another 1 or 2 by the time this video comes out in late June. Yes, that's quite a lot, and those are just the ones in the standard playlist, right? That doesn't include all of the other shotguns, like the shotguns of silly games and the shotguns of weird games and the shotguns of visual novels and all the rest of it. So we could be talking about a hell of a lot more that I would have to go through, which I want to do. But again, that's very, very time consuming. I'm hoping to try and apply that sort of from the future onwards, but yeah, so that's sort of a change that will hopefully come in. If it doesn't happen, that means I was too lazy to do it because it was work, right? But I'm hoping that I am actually going to do that with shotguns, because I think that would be a nice little sort of added detail to apply to shotguns. I think that would be cute and nice, a nice thing to do in terms of shotguns. Keeping with thumbnails, I said that I don't do a lot of effort with thumbnails. I don't. I do basically no effort with thumbnails. If you haven't uploaded videos to YouTube yourself, you might not be familiar with this, but when you upload a video to YouTube, you get 3 auto-generated thumbnails, which are basically just 3 screenshots, like freeze frames, if you like, from 3 almost random points within the video. That YouTube selects on its own via some sort of software. From the number of times it's picked a face, I'm guessing it's got some facial recognition software in that little program, which doesn't surprise me at all. But yes, so like 9 out of 10 videos on the channel have auto-generated thumbnails. The ones which don't have auto-generated thumbnails are just freeze frames that I myself have chosen, that I've seen, you know, like whilst editing the video. I've just paused it at one point and just taken a screenshot of parts of it and used that as a thumbnail, usually when a bad guy appears or something like that. That's certainly been the case with Resident Evil, for example. Yes, I don't put a lot of effort into thumbnails, and there's a reason behind that. It's not just me being lazy. Part of it is me being lazy, a bigger part of it is the fact that thumbnails are a horrible, horrible sort of clickbait on this website, and I would rather delete my channel than get involved in any of that, because I find clickbait to be one of the most deplorable things that is on this site. And there are a lot of bad things on this site. I should know. I am one of the bad things that are on this site. But amongst the bad things, the many bad things that are on this site, clickbait, I think, is one of the worst perpetrators. So I always do my absolute utmost and everything I can to make sure that the channel has zero clickbait on it at all. And flashy thumbnails with overly exaggerated expressions and writing on them, and the famous red circle or the red arrow or all the rest of it are, yeah, I avoid them like a plague-carrying kangaroo. I do absolutely everything in my power to avoid them as much as physically possible, which is why I put very little effort into thumbnails, because I feel like if the thumbnail is boring, then I cannot possibly accidentally perpetrate clickbait, which makes me happy. That makes me happy as well. So yes, anyway, we've been going half an hour already, and I've got a little itinerary of things I want to talk about, and I'm only about halfway through, which isn't exactly great. Never mind, I'll change my tune and I'll stop banging on about shotguns. I'll bang on about this instead. Yes, I actually want to talk about Manic Miners a little bit. Partly because Manic Miners is sort of not come an enormously long way, because we had the majority of the campaign done, I think, by the time I made the last video last year. But I do want to talk about Manic Miners a little bit. Just in terms of what it is and where it's going, I suppose, because Manic Miners is very special to me for reasons that I have nerded out about many times previously. And because it's special to me and because I really like it, that means I want to do lots of it. I want to do lots of videos on Manic Miners, but at the same time, I think to myself that I need to find a good balance, because there's two reasons why I don't want to just overload, well, there's three reasons why I don't want to just overload the channel with huge volumes of Manic Miner videos and little else. The first reason is basic variety. I want there to be good variety on the channel, and if there's a Manic Miners video coming out like every other 5 seconds, then that doesn't mean much variety. The other reason, again a sort of a more practical one, is that I'm aware that while I love Manic Miners, there may be many people on the channel that are here for other things, right? Like, if you have a Venn diagram of the people that are here for Resident Evil and the people that are here for Manic Miners, there's some in the middle. I'm sure there's some in the middle. There's some people in the middle of every Venn diagram. But I'm sure that that is a relatively either a very relatively small percentage, or there is at least one person, and there need only be one person that doesn't much like Manic Miners, and I don't want to flood the channel with Manic Miners content and then that to displease people that that aren't as into Manic Miners as I am. By which I mean they're not chemically addicted to playing the thing. Because, and I think some people lose sight of this occasionally, as an entertainer, my job is to entertain, right? Not to entertain myself, to entertain the audience, right? Which means I have to find out what the audience wants and do that, not do what I like. And you notice this with singers and musicians sometimes. They'll record songs and they'll sing songs that they themselves don't like, but then they published them, and then their audience loved them, and then they continued to sing them. Not because they enjoyed singing them, or not because they liked them, but because the audience liked them, and the audience's needs come above that of the entertainer's needs. So the entertainer continues to perform the song, even though they themselves don't enjoy it, because the audience does. And I'm not here to just play games and have fun. I'm here to entertain you at the end of the day. Which means I need to not just play the games that I enjoy, but to make sure, well, hopefully the hope is that I enjoy everything I play, but the hope is that I do stuff that you like as well. And if there's people that don't like Manic Miners, or people that do like Manic Miners, but also want other stuff, that there is plenty of variety there for other people to like. So yeah, that's why I don't want to try and flood stuff with Manic Miners. Another reason, and this sort of links into what I was talking about clickbait a little bit, I don't want to use the term view whoring as a way of describing what I mean. I don't know if you're familiar with that phrase or not. Whereby people find something that works or is popular or that gets attention, and then they just do that and nothing else, right? I don't want to accidentally, on purposely, or even even go anywhere near that happening with me and Manic Miners. And the reason I bring that up is you might not be familiar with this if you haven't crunched the numbers, but I'm a maths nerd, and a statistics nerd, so of course I crunch the numbers. If you look at the Manic Miners playlist, the number of views on all of the videos in the Manic Miners playlist comes to, as of my calculations, which were about a few weeks ago, which was, like the middle of, what month comes before June? The one that comes before June, and I think is May. I'm not a calendar nerd. The views of the videos within the Manic Miners playlist account for just under 2/3 of the views on the channel. There's about 500 videos on the channel, and about the 10 or 12 that are in the Manic Miners playlist have generated about 63%, I think, of the views on the channel, which is a slightly shocking statistic. An even more shocking statistic is that the first Manic Miners video has generated 25% of the views on the channel by itself, which is slightly incredible. Now, on the one hand, I'm really pleased about that, and I really like that, because it means that there's lots of people out there that like Manic Miners, which is great, because it's one of my favourite games to play, and it's built off my absolute favourite game to play. So it's wonderful in that regard, but on the other hand it's not wonderful, because it means that if I do lots of Manic Miners stuff, then I'm not incentivized by the statistics on the channel, not at all. I couldn't care less whether I'm entertaining one person or entertaining 1 billion people. It doesn't make any difference to me. All that matters is that the people that do watch are entertained. It's a quality over quantity thing, again, which has always been my priority with everything, but especially with this little craziness that we do 4 days a week. Yeah, and I'm conscious of the fact that by producing more Manic Miners stuff, it's as if I am, well, it is that I am just sort of chasing the cash cow, as it were. Not that there is any cash involved in this, self-evidently. Yes. If you're not, I don't think I probably explicitly stated this at some point, but I'm not in the, let me go back to the actual very basics if you're not familiar with this. To earn money on YouTube, you have to be part of what is called the partnership program. And when you join that, then some of the ad revenue that is generated from your videos, or some of the money that comes from people on YouTube Premium, some of that money gets directed to you, because all videos have ads on them, assuming that they're like advertiser friendly. All videos have ads on them, whether or not you're in the partnership program. But joining the partnership program means that instead of all of the money going to YouTube, some of it goes to you. I am not in the partnership program because there are certain eligibility requirements which basically say have a bigger channel than the one that you've got. But because I'm not interested in the statistics, I have never focused on sort of growing the channel, in the sense that I don't do any like self-publicity. I don't encourage people to press certain buttons, shall we say, or to do certain things, shall we say. I hate self-publicity. I absolutely do. I hate it with a passion, almost as much as I hate clickbait. I hate clickbait slightly more, but I hate self-promotion quite a lot as well. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I don't do that. But yeah, anyway, long story short, I'm not in the partnership program, which means I'm not earning as much as a penny off of this. In fact, it's costing me not vast sums of money, but large sums of money, in terms of like buying games and cameras and second screens for OBS and ring lights and microphones and games and all the rest of it, and internet connections, in order to upload things at a vaguely respectable pace. Yeah. Don't know where I was going with this. It's because I use the phrase cash cow, isn't it? Yeah, it's because I use the phrase cash cow, and I don't want it to seem like I'm chasing money, because there's no money involved at all. This thing is a great big hole in the old balance sheet. It's certainly not generating a penny, which is good, actually. I'm sort of glad that there's eligibility criteria to join the partnership program that I don't meet, because I almost don't want to be part of the program and to be earning any money on this. And there's sort of two sides to this argument. I'll talk about why I don't want to be in it first, and I'll talk about what the advantages of being in it would be. The advantages of not being in it is that there's no monetary incentive for me, which could be a corrupting force, because I don't want to ever be driven by monetary interests, because monetary interests could make me do what is popular rather than what is best for the channel, which I don't want that to ever be the situation. I'd never want to do what is money making rather than what is best for the channel. And by not being in the partnership program, there's zero monetary incentive, which is lovely. It also means advantageously that it doesn't really matter that much if we get like a musical copyright strike on a video. It doesn't really matter because when you get a musical copyright strike in a video, again, just to explain this if you're not familiar with how the system works, if there's like a piece of copyrighted music in your video, then instead of the money going to you, the person that made the video, it goes to the person that owns the license to the music instead, right? And there's a whole heck of a debate to be had about that, but we're not here to have that debate today. There are other people that have had that debate already, and there are other people that have articulated it better than I can. Yeah, the advantage is that it doesn't actually matter if that happens, because it doesn't really affect me, because it's not like a copyright strike in the sense that I've like violated copyright rules. You know, it's not anything which could damage the channel. It's literally just you're not getting the money for that video. But I already wasn't getting the money for that video. It means that instead of YouTube getting the money, it's now going to somebody that owns the music, right? And sometimes that's actually positive. If it's like what was it? There was a video I did. I can't. It probably. Yeah, it was in the last year. It was called In Passing. That's what it was called. And that had some music in it by someone called Lucas King, I think was their name. They made the music, they made the soundtrack for the game, which is copyrighted, so when the video went up, it got a strike on it for that music, because it was copyrighted, which meant that the music then, the money then goes to this Lucas King person that made the music, rather than going to YouTube, which is almost sort of nice, in a way, because the people that make games, people that make indie games, and all the other games that I play, they supply me with my bread and butter, as it were. Not my physical bread and butter, because I don't buy bread and butter with the money that comes from the channel, because I don't make any money off this. I feel like I'm saying that far too many times, and it's beginning to sound like I actually would like a monetary incentive. I wouldn't. But I almost sort of like it when developers have their own music, or music of people they're associated with in the videos, because then when the strike comes along, what that means is the money from the video, which is probably like 0.4 of a cent, but the money then goes to the person that made the game instead of YouTube, which is nice, because it's like I'm sort of beginning to give something back, which is nice, because the person that made the game has given me a lot by giving me a game, 9 times out of 10 giving me a free game, and letting me make a video on it, which is extremely kind of them to do. And it's nice to have the opportunity to give a little something back, even if it is only a few pennies or whatever. So, yeah, copyright strikes occasionally do have their advantages. But anyway, we weren't really here to talk about copyright strikes, we were here to talk about the partnership program. Yes, that's one of the reasons I don't want to be in the program, because I don't want that monetary incentive there. A reason that I would like to be in the program, and a reason why making money off this would be good, not just for like personal greed reasons, a reason why it would be good is that the channel could become sort of self-sufficient. It could sort of fund itself, which would be great in terms of allowing me to buy like better stuff. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with all of the software and hardware that I've got, but if it could fund its own purchase of games, that would be fantastic, because sometimes I see a game out there that I really like to play, but I can't scrounge together the money at the moment because I'm buying too many waistcoats and boxes of pizza and things like that, rather than buying games, which is more a symptom of my poor financial management rather than anything else. But if the channel made enough money whereby it could fund the purchase of extra games to play on the channel, that would be lovely, because then that would like give me the opportunity to play a lot more stuff, because sometimes I find something which I would like to play, but I think I can't really risk paying like 20 quid for a game that could turn out to be not at all suitable or just a bit rubbish, which would be very unfortunate indeed, if that makes any sense. So yes, that's why I would like to be in the program, because then it would allow the channel to be a bit more sort of self-sufficient, as it were, and fund itself, which would be lovely. What else did I want to talk about? Right, sorry about that. I just needed to take like a 30-second break, because I've just been talking for like, what, 40 minutes or so, give or take. And yeah, my voice was just getting a little hoarse. I recorded some stuff before this as well, so my voice has been, yeah, it was just getting a little bit sore, and I just wanted to give it a 30-second little break. Yeah, anyway, I feel like I went into this planning to talk about where the channel has come from, where it's progressed over the past year, and where it's going to go the next year, and I feel like instead I've spent the vast majority of my time wittering on about my sort of ethos, as it were, my sort of thinking process for making videos instead, which is possibly interesting. I don't know. Maybe none of this is interesting, and it's just pleasant for me to actually get my thoughts out in the open, rather than them just rattling around inside this empty brain of mine. So I suppose, continuing in the vein of my sort of thinking process and almost ethos for doing this, the sort of overarching thinking process that I use in making videos, certainly in the early parts of the channel when I was coming up with formats and making sort of decisions about how things would work in terms of regularity and length and style and all the rest of it, was that I would try to make videos which I and this is not going to sound great, but I'll explain it honest, make videos which I like. And I know I literally said a few minutes ago, it's not my job to make stuff I like, it's my job to make stuff that other people like. And it is. But I wanted to make videos that were in the style that I like. Because before I made YouTube videos, I watched a lot of YouTube videos, obviously. As I think pretty much everybody within, like, everyone in the entire world with internet access does at this point. It has become such a wide platform with so many people on it, which is a wonderful thing. A wonderful thing. Yes, and the sorts of videos that I liked were long form stuff, as I said before. I really enjoyed the longer stuff, because 9 times out of 10, I didn't really care about what the actual game was. I just liked having that sort of voice on in the background, which was just sort of, yeah, it was just sort of there, almost for like a sense of companionship, rather than a sense of entertainment. I suppose it's a bit like a pet. Some people have a dog for the sake of having a guard dog, and some people have a dog because they want companionship. And some people watch YouTube videos because they want to consume content about the game, and some people watch YouTube videos because they just like to have that sort of companionship in terms of just having a person there which they're familiar with and they can just sort of relax with in the medium of a video, much in the same way that some people like rewatch a TV show many times. Me with Star Trek, rewatch a TV show many times, not for the sake of exploring the story, because they already know the story, but instead what they want to do is just enjoy the sort of the companionship of that sort of familiar story that they know and that they like.
Yes, time to fly high.
Yes, and I try to do the same sort of I hope I'm doing the same sort of thing, because that's what I really liked on YouTube, and it's when channels that I did like stopped being that sort of relaxed, longer form, just chill and be a companion. When channels I liked stopped being that sort of way, I stopped watching them. Which is why I now don't actually watch anything. Well, I watch stuff on YouTube, obviously, but I don't watch any games on YouTube. I actually don't watch any gaming on YouTube at all, because I have yet to find another channel which is like that still, which is that just relaxed, sort of companion style of video. It's probably the best way to term it. Another reason I don't do it, right? You might think, well, why don't you just watch like the older videos of the people that did do that sort of stuff? Yes, I could do that. The problem is they're like professional and funny, and I'm not. And watching it makes me feel bad, because I compare it to my own stuff and I think, gee whiz, what I make is rubbish. So that's another reason I don't watch gaming on YouTube, because it makes me feel bad about how rubbish some of the stuff I make is. And there has been some truly rubbish stuff come out on the channel like for the past year, and I do apologise for that. It hasn't come out yet. I don't know if it even will have come out by the time that this video goes up, but sometime, either in June or July, there's a video called Flicker of Hope coming out, which is a really nice game, right? The game is a little bit buggy, but who cares? It's a really nice game. The problem is I recorded it when I was coming out of an illness, right? And the stupid thing is, I can make decent quality videos when I'm well, and there's that delete video that I made where all the E's are replaced with 3's. I was sick when I made that video, and that video was pretty decent, even though it was actually surprisingly difficult, which I'm amazed that I was able to survive how difficult the ending of that game was, whilst being shockingly ill with a throat infection. But then I was feeling a bit better when I went to record Flicker of Hope, and I'd taken a little break from recording because I was more ill, to the point where I was having because of the throat infection, I was having difficulty speaking. My voice was getting really, really sore, even after just a little bit of talking. So making like a 40-minute video where I'm talking for the vast majority of it was like not possible in terms of like looking after my throat health. But then when I was starting to feel a little bit better, I wanted to get back into recording, and I made a video on a game called Flicker of Hope, and it's just not witty at all. It's just sort of like grumpy and boring, to the point where I try to make a joke and then my brain just shuts down and I can't make a joke. It's something like, I say, this is really inconsistent, but then I try to make it into a simile and say, like, this is more inconsistent than, and then name something really inconsistent. But I can't do it, to the point where, I mean, I was going to cut that out, but then I thought, no, I want an example of just how dreadful this is. So I just put in a black screen explaining what was going on, just to highlight how dreadful it was. And upon saying that, I'm now thinking it more seems obvious I shouldn't just, I should just not publish that video. But I feel like I've talked about it so much now that possibly I need to upload it just so that you can see how bad it is. And there's other examples. There's things like that Cowpocalypse video, which I sat on for ages. I mentioned it somewhere in the description. I can't remember when I recorded that. I certainly recorded that like before the beginning of my final year, which would have been, I don't know, probably like July or August of last year, I think. And then it didn't go up until like March or so of this year, so like a good 8 or 9 months or so. I'll forget the exact dates, probably more accurate information is in the description of that video. But again, I sat on that because I was convinced the quality was really rubbish. And that is such a tricky thing, trying to work out the quality of these things. Because, I mean, obviously everyone's sense of humour is different. You don't, what one person laughs at, another person may not laugh at. One pacing that someone likes, another pacing someone else might not like. And that's difficult. It's difficult for everyone, not just me. It's difficult because when you're deciding whether or not to publish a video, you can't get any feedback. Once you've uploaded something, you can get feedback through comments and friends and people that watch your stuff, and they'll tell you whether they like it or not. Although I do worry sometimes that people are hesitant to give negative feedback. Please, please, don't think you're being nice by not giving negative feedback. If you've got negative feedback, please, I need to hear it. Because that's the only way things are going to get any better. So please, if it's rubbish, tell me. I need to know. Please tell me, I beg of you. Yeah, but before you've published it, it doesn't matter, even if you've got people that are ready to rail you about how dreadful your stuff is, it doesn't do any good. Because, they can't tell you because it hasn't gone up yet. So unless you've got like a circle of like quality control assurance officers that you can give the video to first, and then they can watch it and tell you whether it's any good or not, then yeah, it's difficult to know whether something is actually worthy of being uploaded. Particularly when you sort of, because if I get a video and I sort of like borderline, I can't quite decide whether it's good enough or not to upload, what I tend to do is leave it on the hard drive for a few weeks or a month or so, and then I'll come back and re-watch it. I'll watch the video, watch the recording again, in order to decide whether it's good or not. And that often helps me decide, because I sort of see it with like a fresh pair of ears, as it were. The problem with something like Cowpocalypse was that I ended up re-watching it about 6 times. So even if anything and I said it in it was funny, it wasn't funny anymore because I'd already heard all the jokes like 6 times, if there indeed were any jokes in there. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just a matter of whether the humour was funny or not, it was also a matter of sitting there thinking, am I doing anything just going, what? Because that game was really, really freaking weird. Yes. But anyway, I can't remember where I was going with this. No, I have no idea I was probably complaining about how difficult it is to decide whether things are good enough quality or not to go up, which I suppose links in a little bit to what I was doing with the shotguns. Because again, it's difficult to know whether things are thematically similar enough in order to go together or not in terms of like a quality perspective. Because I've got a shotgun currently, which is a sort of shotgun of sort of mysterious lighthouse island horror, as it were, which is too long to go on the title bar, obviously. But they're both games where you're like in a little boat at sea, and then you arrive on an island, a little mysterious island, and there's a lighthouse on it, and then you go on a little adventure finding out what it's going to be about, right? Now, to me, that sounds thematically similar, right? Because they've both got like the same setup, and then you see how like two different games by two different developers are executed in different ways, right? And that's fine, but like the sort of the resolution of the mystery is quite different in both of them. I won't spoil them in case you haven't seen it and you wish to go off and see it, or whether it hasn't even gone up yet or not, I don't know. Schedule changes so much with various different bits and bobs, but yeah, they're also visually really different. Like, one of them is like a classic pixelated style indie horror game. When people think of indie horror, they think of the pixelated style, and that's what the second one is. The first one, however, is like a monochrome, realistic graphics with a slightly old-timey filter on it. So they're like visually enormously different, like as different as they could be without being like 2D and 3D, right? Being in the same dimension, they look about as different as they could. And I don't think that the visual style should trump anything else. Like, it shouldn't be more important than the thematic similarity, or the length similarity, or the style similarity, or anything else like that. Like, if visual similarity had to come somewhere on the list of priorities, it should be really low and at the bottom, I feel. But, yeah, I look at that shotgun and I think they are similar enough to merit being together, but I'm not 100% convinced, right? And there's another one there's another shotgun I've got in the works at the moment, where there's two games where you're sort of collecting evidence about a sort of a mystery in a sort of a forest. But one of them is sort of traditional wander around and get things, and then your other one is more a wander around and get things while dodging an ever-present threat. While in the second game, you're just sort of wandering around and there's not really much of a threat until the end. Which, again, it seems like that's a small detail, but I'm a bit of a warrior. Not like a warrior, like a warrior. That was not a very good impression of a warrior. You can tell I'm not good in combat, can't you? You wouldn't want me in a zombie apocalypse. That much is certain, unless it's in like a 3-dog sort of job. If the zombie apocalypse comes along, I'll be 3-dog, and you can do all the fighting. I think that seems reasonable. Yeah, I'm a bit of a sort of a warrior in the sense of worrying about things, even small details like that, which sometimes I worry and think people probably won't even notice that there's that difference. They'll see the thematic similarity and think, yay, good, this is what the shotgun should be. Though, to be honest with you, you probably just watch it and enjoy it, or don't enjoy it. You probably don't sit awake at night thinking about them like I do. Sorry, I'm getting a bit excited. I apologise. I'm racking my brains, trying to think of absolutely everything that I want and need to say, because I literally organised coming back here from the city for a long weekend solely to make this video, right? Because I didn't want to record it in the city. I wanted to record it here, where it's quiet, where I'm relaxed, where I feel most comfortable. I wanted to record it here. So yes, I might have travelled a sizable distance purely for the sake of making this video, so I'm trying to make it as good as it really ought to be. Yeah, quality. I'm always striving to get good quality, and I'm so sorry that sometimes there is bad quality stuff. Because again, it's like putting things in the back burner and leaving them forever, as I said previously with the recording half a shotgun and then leaving it there forever. On the one hand, I don't want to just record something and then leave it on my hard drive for potentially months or years, waiting for me to decide whether it's worthy or not to go on the channel. Because if I'm certain something is dreadful and shouldn't be on the channel, I won't upload it. I'm not just chucking stuff out because it's been recorded and think, chuck it out. I never want to do that. It's that I don't want to deprive you of something decent. Like, if it's good and it should be on the channel, it's just me worrying about things that don't matter, then it should still go out. It's just difficult to decide whether it is no, it's fine, it's just me worrying, or actually this is a relatively small detail and you don't need to worry about it, or it's not as bad as you think it is. Which means it should go out on the channel, I should stop worrying about it. Or it's actually no, this video is rubbish, don't put it out. It's just tricky trying to find that balance. I feel like the theme going through this video is me talking about trying to find the balance of various different stuff. And I don't know whether that is good or bad. But yeah, I suppose with everything in entertainment, it is about balancing things and trying to get the right sort of balance with so much stuff. But anyway, I think that's about everything I wanted to talk about. On my itinerary, I've written distasteful rage games. I've also put rage in quotation marks for some bizarre reason. I don't know why. I think I was supposed to tack that onto the bit where I was talking about making videos in the style that I like, which is odd because I actually did enjoy watching rage games occasionally from time to time when I was watching games on YouTube. I think more than my distaste for rage games, just because I don't physically like playing them, because you rage in them. But they're very few and far between, despite the fact that they've got a whole playlist dedicated to them. Which is a bit weird now that I think about it, given that things like Quickfill, think of an example, really good things, but they were a bit short. Like the Copperport Case Files didn't have a playlist, but Rage Games do. Mind you, there were a lot more Rage Games than Copperpot Case Files. I'm rambling about rubbish. I suppose then, the only other thing really to talk about is where the channel's going to go in the next year. And I have less sort of big plans than I did last year, because last year my big plan was really to reform the shotguns, and I think the shotguns have made a lot of progress. As I said at the beginning, at least in my process of making them, even if the physical product isn't that much better, I feel like the factory they're being built in is better, if that makes any sense. It's like, it's still crap, but it's coming out of a cuter bum, if that makes any sense at all. Oh gosh. It's a good thing I don't make money off this, isn't it? Otherwise I'd have to say that I said that phrase for a living. Oh my gosh. I apologise. Right, we're going to move very swiftly on from that and never return to it. Yeah, I mentioned my hope to fix, or improve upon, rather, the thumbnails of the shotguns. I'd like to do that. There's not a great deal else I really want to do. I suppose I could give you an idea of sort of where long-running series are going to go. Once I finish, I've got like 4 games at the moment, like 4 big AAA games at the moment, which are going to be future series. One of them is obviously Resident Evil 4, which is going on at the moment. I've also got Resident Evil 5. I've got The Evil Within, and I've got The Evil Within 2. Now, I adore The Evil Within, but I haven't seen it in like, oh goodness, 4? No, not 4. I didn't see it in 2018. More like 2017. Probably like 5 years, probably, since the last time I've seen The Evil Within, so it'd be great to revisit that and play that. My original plan was to do Resident Evil 4, then The Evil Within, then Resident Evil 5, then The Evil Within 2, because that keeps it like a bit more variety. The only problem is because I didn't know anything about Resident Evil when I started Resident Evil 4, I thought Resident Evil 4 was going to be more different than The Evil Within is. So those games are actually a lot more similar than I was initially anticipating they would be. So I'm trying to find something else, like maybe even just a little short series, just like a 3-part something or something like that, which could appear sort of between Resident Evil 4 and The Evil Within, so that they're not too overly similar. But that's it. If by the time Resident Evil 4 appears I have played something which is like 3 episodes long, then that will happen. If by the time Resident Evil 4 finishes I haven't done that, then that won't happen, is the long and the short of it, basically. Obviously there'll be a break between the series, there always is. There's usually a 2-week break between a main series ending and another series beginning, but yeah, that's sort of the plan, which is probably going to be the plan for a long time, given that I don't know how long each of the games are. I'm predicting somewhere between sort of 10 to 20 videos on each. I've also got all the DLCs for The Evil Within, the first one at least. I don't know if the second one has any DLCs, or if it is, they weren't on sale when I bought them, so I probably didn't buy them, if they do exist. So yeah, The Evil Within could prove to be quite a long series, because I know the DLCs were all like at least a couple of hours long. So, yeah. Those series could last us for like a year or so, which is good. It's good to know that we've got some great, reliable games coming forth that can act as really good series to go on in the future. But I do worry about the length of series sometimes, particularly with the regularity of episodes, because on the one hand, having one video a week of a series has sort of 2 disadvantages. On the one hand, it means that you only get an episode once a week, right? Which I feel like isn't very much. I mean, that's what you get with like a TV show. Some TV shows, obviously, some TV shows are like 1 episode every night, or like every weekday, and then other TV shows are like once a week. I feel like once a week is quite a long time to wait, particularly when the videos sort of line up with each other perfectly, and obviously this is only relevant to the people that watch it as it comes out, not the people that return to it later to watch it after it's all been finished. So I'm aware that this is a relatively small percentage of like total consumption of the content. Because TV shows of something like, say, Star Trek, for example, are relatively disconnected. You know, it's not like one big overarching story, it's like little different stories. So it doesn't matter if there's a week in between the episodes. It doesn't matter if you forgot what happened, most of what happened last time, because that's not integral to understanding what's happening this time, if that makes any sense. It's like one conversation and another conversation. If they're, one conversation is about work and the other conversation is about boxing. Pull something out of the sky, why don't we? Something a bit less ridiculous than some of the other analogies we've made in this video. If you listen to the conversation about work, and then a week later you listen to the conversation about boxing, it doesn't matter if you've forgotten what happened in this conversation, because it's not relevant to this one. I've eaten both my hands on this week. Yes, they are. That makes a nice change. I'm not very staying in frame conscious, as the first video I ever made proved. But if you had like 2 halves of the same conversation, like the first half of the work conversation and the second half of the work conversation, and they were a week apart, you might have some struggles in the second half because you've forgotten what happened in the first half, which is what I fear happens in series sometimes when episodes are a week apart. But I don't know what else I can do, because the logical place to give you another video would be the midweek slot, but the whole purpose of the midweek slot is just to give you like a little, like, 2-minute to 12-minute sort of thing in the middle of the week. Not to give you like an hour of Resident Evil, for example. So that doesn't really work. So within the format, there's no place where I could give you, well, I mean, I could just, produce and publish more, but in terms of like the current schedule of where things are and what things work with, it just sort of wouldn't really work. The other option would be like to have like series be like the Friday and Sunday video, and then to just do like a normal video in the on the Saturday slot, for example. But then you have very little variety. And again, going back to what I was talking about with people that don't like Manic Miners, at that point, 2 out of the 3 main, if I was doing a system like that, 2 out of the 3 main videos that come out a week, if you don't like a given series, that's 2/3 of the main content that's being produced that you don't like, which means you've only got 1 video a week. And if that's just like a random indie thing, then you might not like that as well, which means in a week there might be nothing coming out that you like, which is not a situation I ever want to leave people in. I want there to always be something that you will probably like at least a little bit. Yes, so it would, like, if 2 episodes of a series came out in the same weekend, then that would be it would reduce the variety, and then for the people that don't like that particular series, it means there's very limited content there which they can still enjoy. It also wouldn't really solve the problem, because they'd still be week-long gaps. It would just be a week-long gap between every other video instead of every video. The other thing is that when you're only doing a video once a week, you have something like West of Loathing, for example, which is like 18 episodes. It means that the series goes on for like 5 months. I think, do you really want a single game to last 5 months? It's like if you bought, like back in ye olden times of 2005 when Resident Evil first came out, or at least the one I'm playing anyway, you probably bought it, and you probably played it, and you probably finished it within like a week or 2, not like 6 months. But, so I worry sometimes that it's not really appropriate to play a game over a really, really long period like that and almost turn it into what is basically a TV show at that point, or the equivalent of a TV show, given the sort of the length and the regularity and the physical length of the videos, not just like the length of the series as well. So yeah, again, that's one of the other things that I sit up in bed at night and think about, because, yes, I'm just that sad and lonely that I sit in bed thinking about videos instead of sitting about thinking of other things that people, more interesting and successful people in life probably should be thinking about in the middle of the night. Or like what sensible people probably think about in the middle of the night, which is going to sleep. But never mind. I think the series are fine, to be honest. Again, it's probably just little tiny things that I'm worrying about too much, that are not necessary, because as I said, it's only for the people that are watching it as it comes out, and people coped fine with 1 episode a week of TV shows for a very long time, so maybe again I'm panicking about something which really isn't at all relevant or worth worrying about at all. So I think, I apologise that that's probably been about an hour. You possibly have just given up an hour of your day listening to me ramble, and for that I sincerely apologise. But I think that's about everything. I think that's a relatively good rundown of what's happened over the past year. As I said, no massive plans for what's going to happen over the next year. I want to introduce the new thumbnails for the shotguns. I want to get outtakes back, hopefully over the latter part of this summer. I'll be able to do that when I've got a little bit more time on my hands. And yes, I shall try my very best to keep the quality of everything, not just shotguns. I appreciate I ramble on about the quality of shotguns a lot more than I ramble on about the rest of other stuff. Not to imply that I think the quality of the shotguns is more important than anything else. You know, each individual part of the channel is equally important to me. I think the quality of like midweek videos should be as high as the quality of everything else. Like shotguns, standalones, series, the rest of it. They're just my sort of my pet, as it were. They're like my little baby, and I want to get them like just right, because I feel like if anything is synonymous with the channel, other than Manic Miners, anything is synonymous with the channel, it was going to be shotguns, like the format and the ethos behind them, so I want to get it right. Yes, right, sorry. Slight interruption. Yes, just in terms of the background will stay the same for the next year as I do my master's degree, because I'm staying in the same place, which hopefully will be alright. It's not a perfect setup, obviously. There are so many things about it I dislike. Mainly the fact that the walls are really thin, and everyone goes around slamming doors all the time, which really irritates me, because it constantly corrupts the recordings, because you hear people banging doors on the things, which is really irritating. And occasionally I'm in like a really good mood to record, but I can't, because there's like someone having a telephone conversation upstairs or like in the next room, which is like being picked up on the microphone, which spoils things. and also I don't want to like do recordings when other people are doing their things, because I don't want to disturb them and I don't want them to disturb me. So, you know, it's like, it's trying to like live socially with other human beings, and I'm not good at that. I like living in a little dark corner of the universe and not having to interact with people unless it's through the internet, which I seem to do all right at. But yeah, it's not a perfect setup, but hopefully, I appreciate it was quite rough with like recordings that were made in like autumn and winter of last year. I appreciate that they were quite rough sometimes in terms of like positioning and stuff. I apologise for that in terms of the little quality problems that causes. But I think I'm starting to fine-tune it, and I'm starting to settle in a little bit better there. Only took an entire year, but we got there pretty much in the end. Only took an entire academic year, but we got there. So hopefully that means there won't be another sort of ugly transition into another location by staying in the same place. So yes, there will be more of the tapestry behind my right shoulder for the remainder of the month. After that, I ain't got a clue. I don't know. Here, the same place, somewhere else. No idea. I haven't planned my life out that far, to be honest with you. I've got 12 months ahead of me, and after that, I could end up in space, or I could end up on a street corner. I haven't got a clue. I haven't planned that at all. But I think I've pretty much cleared out my itinerary, and I've probably bored you stiff. But that is sort of what I do every week and every day, that I produce something. So yeah, that's about everything I wanted to say. I don't know whether any of that was interesting or any of that was useful, but if it was, I'm glad, and if it wasn't, I apologise. But that's enough from me. I think I've prattled on more than enough. So let us zoom in a little bit to have a slightly more intimate feel as we finish off. So yes, thank you for putting out with my ramblings. Yeah, thank you, and sorry, and we'll probably do this again next year, where we'll talk about my miserable failure to implement better thumbnails for the shotguns, and perhaps I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about what will be happening the year after that. So that will all be very interesting. Yeah, I think this is a nice little tradition to have, in terms of just once a year sort of relaxing and taking stock of what's happened and what's going to happen, which is nice, I think. Yes, so yeah. So yes, thank you for listening to my endless prattle, and yes, as ever, look after each other, and good night.